We talk quite liberally using the phrase empowering communities, empowering individuals. But what do we really mean by that? What does that actually look like in practice? Hi, I'm Mark, I'm from a charity. I've come to empower you today. It's a very doing thing. And people use it genuinely in a meaningful way, but it does come across as quite a doing activity sometimes. For me personally, I see it more as a transaction. It's a conversation between communities, and it starts early. And it's small conversations, gentle conversations. It takes time, it takes patience, and we wanted to shift the agency and the authorship across to those communities and individuals so they have a real embedded and sustainable sense of ownership. Rather than the doing, we're doing it with. Now, as a charity, the title here, Thinking Small, Reaching Further. A few years ago, we took, it feels like the sensible thing now, but it was a really tough decision to say, we're going to do less. And we went to our funders and our corporate sponsors and others and said, we're going to do less. Thank you for the money, but we'd like to do less with it. What did that look like? And everyone was like, oh, you're crazy. Why would you do that? Your funders are going to be up in arms. They're never going to give you money to do this. And we stuck to our guns and we said, no, it's really important. It's the small conversations. It's the building those networks of people. It's the having that extended dialogue. That will lead to long-term engagement. That will lead to co-authorship. That will lead to people taking agency of what they're doing. And in turn, it becomes embedded and it becomes sustainable. The reaching further. We did that, we secured the funding, and we're still doing it today. What I want you to take you through today is how we're doing that, and some examples of what that looks like for us at Spud. I guess it's an idea of dropping a pebble. You've all heard, drop a pebble creates a ripple. We're dropping lots of little pebbles all over our pond, and those little ripples are spreading out, and they're connecting, and they're making new patterns and new opportunities. That's what's exciting for us, because you don't know quite what that's going to look like. Those ripples move and interconnect and change, and the shape evolves. The work we're doing is evolving all the time. That's what's really exciting. And it's a continuum. We also work closely with artists as part of this process. As an arts organisation, you would expect us to. But we really have tried very hard to shift away from this idea as artists coming in to produce a bronze or a mural or a piece of work to finish something off. For us, artists are researchers, they're engineers, they're human geographers, and so many more things. They bring a huge skill set to the work we do. They're a conduit to our communities. They enable those stories to be unpacked. They find gentle ways into talking to people. They're very special, and they form a great part of the work we do. Equally, work with young people is really important to us. And I think that's where the work Spud does started. And it's where we got this idea of shifting the sense of ownership. And for a long time, young people haven't really been listened to. Young people won't go to planning meetings. They won't sit in civic events. You know, they're kind of overlooked. And therefore, teenagers feel disengaged. Well, why would I go to anything? Why would I talk? No one listens to me. We wanted to shift that conversation, say, your voice is important, and you can make a difference. So, one of our projects in Andover, not too far away, we took a group of youngsters, teenagers, all different abilities, to look at a route that was very problematic, and it went from the Lights Art Centre into the back of the town centre. And it was very hard to find your way, and it was, there'd been kind of discussions about it being a bit dangerous, and everyone found it really difficult, which meant the art centre was disconnected from the town centre. So we said, well, let's take young people out. Let's explore that route with them and see what they think. So they got an opportunity to do a presentation. One young man stood up during his presentation, said, I'm going to tell you all about the route and what I think the solution is. And it was fantastic. So we had an audience like this. We had all the top brass from Test Valley Borough Council, the council leader, the head of planning. Everyone was there. And he starts talking about this route. And then he started explaining, it's really dangerous. There's been crimes, muggings, rapes, theft along this route. In the audience, the leader of the council was sat there, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this, but he was getting more and more agitated. You could see his knuckles going white on his chair. And in the end, he stood up, slammed his fist on the table and went, no, stop. This is not the town I recognise. This is not Andover. Without missing a beat, the young man clicked the next slide on his presentation, and he mapped the crime statistics for the previous 2 years on that route. rapes, muggings, theft. The council leader sat down, put his hands up, went fair cop. Nothing more I can say. A few days later, the hedges were cut back, the trees were pruned, the broken street lighting was fixed, the yellow lines were painted back on the road. Within a few days, action was taken. It was an amazing moment to take that young man back and go, you did that. You've just made this route a little bit safer. You standing up in that 5-minute presentation created action and movement by those councillors. It was a really powerful moment. It wasn't clever by us. I didn't even know he put this slide in. I didn't even know he'd been online and got those crime statistics. He'd found them himself, he'd put them in, and he'd challenged that audience. Very powerful moment. It was because we gave him a voice, and we wrapped some support and tools around him to do that. What does it look like for us as an organisation, as a charity? We were very fortunate 7 years ago to take over a building in the New Forest. It used to be Artsway, lost its funding and it was failing. And we took over the building, and we'd never had a building till this stage. We'd kind of inherited anybody's spaces. Anyone who would give us a bit of desk space, we're in Winchester, Southampton, we'll sit on a desk. And suddenly we got a whole building to ourselves to take over. And we decided, and with our trustees, we would only do that if we could make it truly sustainable, both financially and as a community. Not just me going in there and running it and telling what people to do. So financially, it was about creating spaces that could be rented and generate an income so the building could stand on its own 2 feet. And we wanted to get to that position quite quick, not be relying on huge grants. But more importantly, it was about putting a community in there, artists, tenants, participants, visitors, that started to take that ownership of the place. So it wasn't me running it. There was a whole load of people, all different ages and abilities coming in. 2 of our resident artists are both in their 70s, never had art studios before in their lives. And they're now absolutely part of the community, developing their own projects and taking the direction of what we do forwards. This is the building, this is Artswork, Spudworks. We've got spaces for people with dementia, we work with LGBTQI community, we work with children with additional needs. Everyone's welcome into the space. And again, it's not us doing it. Because we've created a space where lots of things can happen, we have people taking ownership of all those different elements. The thing that excites me when I go to work is perhaps there could be 10 things happening at Spudworks on one day. I'm probably only managing 2 of them or funding 2 of them. The other 8 are people who have come in and said, well, you've created a space, here's a workshop, here's a studio, here's this, I'll get on and do it. And it's so fantastic. Or to creep around the building and just listen to conversations where people are generating new ideas, designing a new project, a new plan for an exhibition or some outreach work. It's fantastic. We couldn't have a sustainable charity and a sustainable building if those people weren't taking ownership of the space. We're at a point now where actually it would be very difficult to take the building back off people. I'm sure I couldn't if I said, no, sorry, we're closing Spudworks down. It'd be uproar because it's become theirs, not mine. And that's really important in the building becoming sustainable. The project many of you all know, you might even recognise from this little sketch, Handlebar Cafe. We're in Winchester. Handlebar Cafe is just down the road at St Catherine's Hill. If you've been and bought a coffee or a sandwich, thank you very much because you've helped my charity by doing that. We own Handlebar Cafe. We created it a number of years ago, and I say we created it, we didn't. Back to young people again. We were working with a group of youngsters in the city, and we've been doing a project around the railway station and different things. And I said, well, what are you interested in? What do you want to do next? And they said, cycling is like huge at the moment. Chris Hoy had been winning all the gold medals in the Olympics. There was lots of cycling happening around Winchester, and it was really a really exciting time for cycling. Everyone was getting their Lycra on and heading out to the hills. Fantastic. And the children said, we need a cycle cafe. We need a cycle hub. We need somewhere for cyclists to go. Winchester doesn't have that. So I'm not from Winchester, I live down in the forest. I gave them all OS maps and I said, off you go and find somewhere to build this cycle cafe. And they went. 2 weeks later, came back with the OS maps, went, we found a location just at the bottom of St Catherine's Hill. I didn't know it. And off we trundled, went and had a look, all overgrown with bushes, and there's this little bridge you'll recognise now going through, and it's a Sustrand cycle route. And they went, we want to build it there. I was like, okay, let's have a look. We took it to the city council. They did a sketch. This was the first sketch of the very first sketch of Cycle Cafe, created by Alex. We took it to the City Council. We did a presentation to a full cabinet, about 50 elderly, grey-haired people, terrifying for these teenagers to do a presentation. I was terrified. And they did this incredibly eloquent presentation because they owned it. It was theirs. They'd been thinking about it from the very beginning. They presented. They walked out of the cabinet meeting with £50,000. There you go. Get started. It was nowhere near enough, but it got them started. A couple of weeks later, we went to meet with Bill Bullen from Utilitas. Some of you may know, big energy company based in Winchester. We went into his boardroom. The youngsters went and spoke to him. Brilliant presentation. Half an hour later, walk out with £50,000. Incredible. They didn't just do the funding. They did the planning. They did the cabinet meetings. They worked with architects. They were on site when the builders were on site, all the way through to cutting the ribbon and creating that cafe. It's theirs. It's not ours. It's theirs. Every single one of those youngsters has gone on to study an architecture degree, have done their MAs, and pretty much all of them are now working in practice and are hugely successful. They got to become architects or try to be architects before even going to university, before saying to mum and dad, could I have £30,000 please to go and study architecture? Having never done it before, this was just an incredible opportunity for them to be engaged and create this really exciting, vibrant hub for the community, which is thriving. Handlebar Cafe is thriving. So this is it. This is the result of their work, all their hard work. That's a big project. Not everything has to be big and huge. Sometimes little things, small interventions, can have just as much impact on young people. So this exhibition has just come down in our gallery this week. We gave a few weeks ago an opportunity to a group of youngsters, a group of teenagers, to explore creating their own exhibition, selecting their own artists, designing the exhibition, the lighting, choosing the pieces of work. And they worked with two different artists, one living, one dead, and they chose from their collections of work what they wanted to put into the gallery. The exhibition went up, really incredibly well received, but on the process towards getting to that and allowing these young people to learn how to curate an exhibition and put it together, we had lots of knockbacks from funders and things like that saying, oh, this is too much, it's too academic, it's too highbrow, the youngsters won't do this, you know. Shouldn't we be thinking about doing graffiti art or painting hats and things like that? It's like, no, you know, they can do this. The challenge is there. We'll support them through that process. And we took them through all these different steps. At the end of that first exhibition, not this one, the end of that first exhibition, we then gave them £3,000. And we said, we'd like you to commission your own artists now. They had 8 artists to choose from. They spent a day working with these artists, doing workshops. And at the end of that day, they went, we're going to choose these 2 artists. We want to work with Katie and Kate. They're fantastic. And they commissioned them and gave them the money and said, off you go, create us a new exhibition, create us some new artwork, which had come directly from those young people. This is the result of that commission from those young people and their exhibition. All about forest mythology, these beautiful bronze castings, a really meaningful, deep exhibition. We had people coming in saying they were feeling goosebumps in this exhibition. They were so taken by it. So young people can have a really big impact. They can make significant change by given the tools and the opportunity to do that work. I've been describing something which is really, it's often quite hard to put a finger onto it and go, it looks like that. It's not something that comes with a big pot of money. It's not something you can say, oh, it's this big project. If we all do this, it'll look like that. That will work. Because often I don't know what it is. But what I do know is lots of little interventions. It's lots of small things that allow people to say, well, I can do that. I feel safe doing that. I feel like I've been given permission to do that, and I can move that forward. That's my idea. We also have a very open door policy where people come in. In fact, I would say it's more of a revolving door policy in our office at the moment, where people come in constantly with new ideas. And we don't shut the door on those people. We don't say, well, we're not that kind of organization. We don't do that kind of work. I'd much rather say, well, come and have a coffee. So if there's anyone here who wants to come and have a coffee, the door's open. Let's sit down and have a conversation and see where that idea goes. What does that look like? It might work, it might not, but I'd much rather have that conversation and see what might happen. And out of that come those really exciting ideas. And it's come from other people. It's not come from me. It's not come from me saying, we're going to do this. And then those ideas become embedded, they become sustainable, they are generated through co-authorship, and they grow. and they just pull other people into it. I often get the comment from people as well that, why are you so generous with sharing ideas? Why am I here talking about what we do? All the work we do, whether it's with funders, whether it's with corporates, whether it's with community groups, individuals, other arts organisations, whoever, the more we share our ideas, the better the ideas become. They become more exciting. They go off on tangents we couldn't possibly know until we've had those conversations. And the more that happens, the more they grow. So we've never been in a position where, it's our idea, we're keeping that to ourselves, we need to be precious about it and protect it. We open up and share those ideas, and we get tenfold back. Way bigger opportunities, way more exciting, and way more embedded. So to conclude for me, we need to be celebrating and supporting those young people, those community groups, those placemakers, those people who want to make a difference and change. We need to be open to those ideas. And we all need to be going around with our pebbles and dropping them in ponds and making those ripples and making change. Thank you.